The two engines had not worked with Diesel for a long time. "What are you doing here?" gasped Duck.
"Your worthy fat, Sir Topham Hatt sent me. I hope you are pleased to see me. I am to shunt some dreadfully tiresome trucks."
"Shunt where?" said Percy suspiciously.
"Where? Why, from here to there," purred Diesel, "and again from there to here. Easy, isn't it?"
With that, Diesel, as if to make himself quite clear, bumped some trucks hard. "Woo!" screamed the trucks. "Grrr!" growled Diesel.
Percy and Duck were horrified. They did not trust Diesel at all.
They refused to work and would not leave their shed. The fat controller was enjoying his tea and ice bun when the telephone rang. "So there's trouble in the harbour yard? I'll be there right away." Diesel was working loudly and alone. Cargo lay on the quay. Ships and passengers were delayed. Everyone was complaining about the fat controller's railway. Percy and Duck were sulking in their shed. "What's all this?" demanded the fat controller. We're on strike, sir," said Percy. "Yes," added Duck. "Beg pardon, sir, but we won't work with Diesel, sir." Then, in a quiet, hurt voice, he added, "You said you'd sent him packing, sir." "I have to give Diesel a second chance. I am trying to help you by bringing Diesel here. Now you must help me. He was the only engine available." Percy and Duck went sadly back to work. Next morning, things were no better. Diesel's driver had not put his brakes on properly, and Diesel started to move. He went bump straight into Percy. Percy had an awful fright.
"Wake up there, Percy," scowled Diesel. "You have work to do."
He didn't even say he was sorry to Percy. Later, Diesel bumped the truck so hard that the loads went everywhere. "What will the fat controller say?" gasped Percy. "He won't like it," said Duck.
"So who's going to tell him, I wonder?" said Diesel. "Two little goody-goody telltales like you, I suppose."
Percy and Duck did not want to be telltales, so they said nothing. Diesel, thinking he could get away with his bad behaviour, was ruder than ever. Next day, he was shunting trucks full of china clay. He banged the trucks hard into the buffers, but the buffers weren't secure. The silly trucks were sunk. Henry could remember the day long ago when he and Toby brought some new trees to be planted, and Terence and Trevor helped haul them into place. Now he could see the trees growing amongst the others on the hillside. Henry always felt better for being here. He couldn't really explain why, but his driver understood. "It's peaceful," he said to Henry. But one night, everything changed. The engines were resting in the shed. "Listen," said Thomas. "Can you hear a strange whistling sound?" "It's the wind blowing outside our shed," replied Toby, "but I've never heard it like this before." "Do you know," added James, "if Gordon wasn't here now, I'd say it was him thundering by with the express." All the engines laughed, except Henry. "I hope the wind won't harm the forest." By morning, the fierce winds had gone, but the damage was done. Henry's driver came to see him in the yard. "Trees have fallen on the line. We must help clear the tracks." Donald set off with the breakdown train, and Henry followed. Trees lay everywhere. The hillside now looked so bare. Henry felt sad. What will happen to all the animals who live here, he thought. When Henry's flat trucks were full of logs, he took them to the timber mill, where they would be turned into furniture and other things. Henry was glad the wood was being put to good use, but he was still sorry to lose part of his forest. "Hello, Toby," said the Fat Controller. "You do look glum." "I'm sad about the trees," said Toby, "and so is Henry. The forest is a special place to him, now some of it is gone." "We'll soon put that right. I have an important job for you, Toby. I would like you to take some trucks to the forest." When the trucks arrived, Toby was delighted. They were full of splendid young trees, all ready for planting. Now Henry can see the trees growing strong and tall, and the animals are coming back. At the next station was a sign: all trains must wash down daily. James had just finished being cleaned. "Come on, Gordon," said his driver. "You'll feel better after a good hose down." "Pah!" said Gordon, and angrily let off steam. "You're a very naughty engine," said Gordon's driver. "Now James will need another shower. You'll have to wait your turn till later." "Good riddance," huffed Gordon. "I'm far too busy to waste time with water." He finished his journey safely and steamed into the big station. The Fat Controller was waiting. So were Gordon's coaches and the passengers. "Goodness gracious," said the Fat Controller. "You can't pull the train. Henry will have to do it. Gordon, you'd better get clean straight away." Gordon was soon being washed. "Mind my eyes," he grumbled. Then he pulled trucks for the rest of the day. He bumped them hard. "That's for you, and you, and you." "Trucks will be trucks," said James. "They won't be me," snorted Gordon. "I'll teach them." James got ready to take the express when Gordon returned. "Be careful," warned Gordon. "The hills are slippery and you may need help." "I don't need help on hills," replied James huffily. "Gordon thinks he knows everything." Earlier, a storm had swept Gordon's hill, blowing leaves onto the track. Even though the storm had passed, the hill was still difficult to climb. James knew this. The signal showed clear and James began to go faster. "I'll do it. I'll do it," he puffed. Halfway up, he was not so sure. "I must do it. I must do it." But his wheels slipped on the leaves. He couldn't pull the train at all. "Help! Help!" whistled James. His wheels were turning forward, but the heavy coaches pulled him backwards. The whole train started slipping down the hill. His driver shut off steam and put on the brakes. Then carefully, he stopped the train. Gordon saw everything. "Ah, well, we live and learn. Never mind, little James, I'm going to push behind." Later, he was still boasting. "I'm the pride of the line." "I saw you pulling trucks today. You're only a goods engine," snorted Gordon. James was furious. "I pull coaches too." "Not as much as I do," grunted Gordon. "The Fat Controller has plans for me." James was only making this up, but Gordon believed him. "What plans?" Wait and see." "Oh dear," thought James, "now what'll I do?" Thomas was shunting shining new coaches. "Good morning, James." "Are those coaches for me?" asked James hopefully. "No, these are for Gordon's Express. I'll fetch your trucks next." But James was going to play a trick on the other engines. "Actually, Thomas, I'm taking the coaches. The Fat Controller asked me to tell you." "What about the trucks?" Give them to Gordon." "Come on, Thomas," said his driver. "Orders are orders." So when James's driver returned, James was coupled to the coaches and he puffed away. Thomas returned with the trucks. A few minutes later, Gordon arrived. "Where's the express?" Thomas told him about James, and so here are your trucks. Gordon was very cross, and so was his driver. "Wait till the Fat Controller hears about this." Meanwhile, James was enjoying himself enormously. "What a clever plan, what a clever plan," he chuffed. Then he saw the Fat Controller.
Some jokes are funny, but not this one, James. You have caused confusion.
"Yes, sir," said James.
You will stay in your shed until you are wanted.
The other engines teased James. "I wonder who'll be pulling the express today," said Gordon. "I expect it'll be you," replied Henry. "James is stuck in the shed for being silly." James felt sad. Next morning, he went back to work. "Hello," whistled Thomas. "Good to see you out and about again." "I'm sorry I tricked you," said James. "Are these my trucks?" "Yes," replied Thomas kindly. "They are pleased to have you back." James puffed into the harbour with his goods train of trucks. One night, Percy was waiting at the junction. The main line train was late. At last, Henry arrived. "Sorry," he puffed. "The mail boat from the mainland was delayed." "Come on, Percy," said his driver. "Let's make up for lost time." Percy puffed along as quickly as he could, but the sun was already rising as he finished his work. "Never mind," thought Percy. "It's nice to be up and about when it's the start of a new day and there's no one else around." Percy was not alone for long. "Bother," said Percy. "It's that dizzy thing, Harold." "Good morning," whirred Harold. "I always said railways were out of date, but you're so slow with the post, you should give everyone their stamps back. Post haste." Percy was too tired to explain. "Bird brain," he muttered. "Good morning, Percy," called Duck. "You're up early." "No, you're wrong," sighed Percy. "I'm back, tired and late." He rolled into the shed and fell asleep almost before his buffers touched the bar. His driver decided to set off early that evening. Thomas was waiting at the station. "Thank goodness I've a chance to speak to you. Driver said that the person in charge of the post has complained to the Fat Controller about the delay last night." "But that wasn't my fault," replied Percy. "I know," said Thomas, "and so does the Fat Controller, but this post person wouldn't listen. Tonight we'll just have to be quicker than ever before." The engines were just leaving the station when they heard a familiar buzzing.
I say, you two, there's news flying about.
"Where?" puffed Percy.
All over the place. They're going to scrap the post train and use me instead. Wings work wonders, you know, always.
"Rubbish," huffed Thomas. That night, everything ran like clockwork. Thomas and Percy steamed through the stations, making good time everywhere they went. At a station, Thomas noticed a man looking cold and worried. He had missed his train home. "We can give you a ride," said Thomas's driver, "but it will be rather uncomfortable." "Thank you," said the man. "Anything's better than sitting here." "Bad luck, Bertie," said Thomas. "Now, if you were a steam engine, you would run on a pair of reliable rails." "Huh," replied Bertie. "The railway was supposed to deliver tar to mend the road 2 weeks ago. You can't trust a thing that runs on rails." "I run on rails. You can trust me, Bertie. I'll see if I can find out what's happened." Thomas left Bertie and made his way along the branch line towards the big station by the sea. James was snorting about in the yard. It's too bad. Percy goes to work at the harbour and I do his job here, there and everywhere. Take that.
"Ooh," groaned the trucks. "Just you wait, we'll show you." Gordon laughed. "I'll tell you what, James, if you pretended to be ill everywhere, you couldn't shunt trucks here or go to the quarry there, could you?"
What a good idea, agreed James. Look, here comes Thomas. I'll start pretending now. Thomas was sorry to see the engines looking miserable. Cheer up, it's a beautiful day.
Yes, grumbled Gordon, but not for James.
What's the matter?
He's sick, replied Gordon.
"Yes, he is. I am," stuttered James. I don't feel well at all."
Don't worry, said Thomas kindly. I'll help out if you're ill.
Gordon and James sniggered quietly to each other.
Some of James's trucks were coupled behind Thomas, and he steamed away to the quarry. The trucks were still cross.
"We couldn't pay James back for bumping us, so we'll play tricks on Thomas instead. One engine is as good as another."
But Thomas didn't hear them. He collected all the stone from the quarry and then set off back to the junction. Danger lay ahead. "Now for our plan," giggled the trucks. "Go faster, go faster." "Slow down," called Thomas's driver and applied the brakes. Poor Thomas stood dazed and surprised in a muddy pond as a toad eyed him suspiciously. "Bust my buffers," muttered Thomas. The day started so well, too. Duck pulled away the trucks, and Edward helped Thomas back to the junction. Suddenly, Thomas remembered about the missing tar. He told Edward all about it. "That's strange," said Edward. "A truck full of tar has been left at my station. That must be it. Driver will make sure it gets to Bertie now." Toby's line crosses with the main road behind the station and for a short way follows a farm lane. Frosty weather makes the muddy lane rock hard and very slippery. Toby stops before reaching the lane. His fireman halts the traffic at the crossing and then he sets off again. By using the heavy trucks to push him along, he has no trouble with the frosty rails in the lane. It is the only safe thing to do in this kind of weather. Toby warned Mavis and told her just what to do. "I can manage, thank you," she replied. "I'm not an old fusspot like you." The trucks were tired of being pushed around by Mavis. "It's slippery," they whispered. "Let's push her around instead." "On, on," they yelled. Mavis took no notice. Instead, she brought the trucks carefully down the lane and stopped at the level crossing. All traffic halted. "One in the headlamp for Fusspot Toby," chortled Mavis. But Mavis had stopped in the wrong place. Instead of taking Toby's advice, she had given the trucks the chance they wanted. Hold back, they cried. "Grrr, up," ordered Mavis. The trucks just laughed and her wheels spun helplessly. Workmen sanded the rails and tried to dig away the frozen mud, but it was no good. Everyone was impatient. "Grrr, ah!" wailed Mavis. Toby was in the yard when he heard the news. "I warned her," he fumed. "She's young yet," soothed his driver, "and she can manage her trucks herself," interrupted Toby. "They're your trucks, really," his driver replied. "Mavis is supposed to stay at the quarry if the Fat Controller finds out." Yes," said Toby thoughtfully. He and his driver agreed that it would be best to help Mavis after all. An angry farmer was telling Mavis just what she could do with her train. "Having trouble, Mavis?" chortled Toby. "I am surprised." "Gosh," said Mavis. With much puffing and wheel slip, Toby pushed Mavis and the trucks back. hard work made his fire burn fiercely, and his firemen spread hot cinders to melt the frozen mud.
Stop, stop! I've got Thomas's passengers, wailed Bertie, roaring up to the gates. It was no good. Edward was gone. Bother, said Bertie. Bother Thomas's fireman not coming to work today. Why did I promise to help the passengers catch the train? That will do, Bertie, said his driver. A promise is a promise, and we must keep it. I'll catch Edward or bust, said Bertie. Oh, my gears and axles, he groaned, toiling up the hill. I'll never be the same bus again. Hooray, hooray, I see him, cheered Bertie as he reached the top. Oh, no, Edward's at the station. No, he stopped at a crossing. Hooray, hooray! Bertie tore down the hill. Well done, Bertie, shouted his passengers. Go it! Bertie skidded into the yard. Wait, wait, cried Bertie. He was just in time to see Edward puff away. I'm sorry, said Bertie. Never mind, said the passengers. After him quickly. Third time lucky, you know. Do you think we'll catch him at the next station, driver? There's a good chance, replied the driver. Our road keeps close to the line and we can climb hills better than Edward. I'll just make sure. He spoke to the station master. Bertie and the passengers waited impatiently. Yes, we'll do it this time, said the driver. Hooray, called the passengers, as Bertie chased after Edward once more. This hill is too steep. This hill is too steep, grumbled the coaches as Edward snorted in front. They reached the top at last and ran smoothly into the station. Peep, peep, whistled Edward. Get in quickly, please. The guard blew the whistle and Edward's driver looked back. But the flag didn't wave. Then he heard Bertie. Everything seemed to happen at once, and the station master told the guard and driver what had happened. I'm sorry about the chase, Bertie, said Edward. My fault, replied Bertie. The new engine arrived. What's your name? Asked the fat controller. Montague, sir, but I'm usually called Duck. They say I waddle. I don't really, sir, but I like Duck better than Montague. Good. Duck it shall be. Here, Percy, show Duck round. The two engines went off together. Soon they were very busy. James, Gordon and Henry watched Duck quietly doing his work. He seems a simple sort of engine. We'll have some fun and order him about.
Whee!
Smoke billowed everywhere. Percy was cross. Duck took no notice. They'll get tired of it soon. Do they tell you to do things, Percy? Yes, they do, answered Percy. Right, said Duck. We'll soon stop that nonsense. He whispered something. We'll do it later. The fat controller was looking forward to hot buttered toast for tea at home. Suddenly he heard an extraordinary noise. Whee! Bother, he said, and hurried to the yard. Duck and Percy calmly sat on the points outside the shed, refusing to let the engines in. Gordon, James, and Henry were furious. "Stop that noise!" bellowed the Fat Controller. "They won't let us in," hissed Gordon. Duck explained this behavior. "Beg pardon, sir, but I'm a Great Western engine. We do our work without fuss. But begging your pardon, sir, Percy and I would be glad if you would inform these, engines that we only take orders from you." "Silence!" snapped the Fat Controller. "Percy and Duck, I am pleased with your work today, but not with your behavior tonight. You have caused a disturbance." Gordon, Henry, and James sniggered. "As for you," thundered the Fat Controller, "you've been worse. You made the disturbance. Duck is quite right. This is my railway, and I give the orders." After Percy went away, Duck was left to manage alone. He did so, easily. A long stretch of line lay ahead. In the distance was a bridge. It seemed to Gordon that there was something on the bridge. His driver thought so too. "Whoa, Gordon," he said, and shut off steam. "Oh," said Gordon, "it's only a cow. Shoo! Shoo!" He moved slowly onto the bridge, but the cow wouldn't shoo. She had lost her calf and felt lonely. "Moo," she said sadly. Everyone tried to send her away, but she wouldn't go. Henry arrived. "What's this? A cow? I'll soon settle her. Be off, be off." "Moo," said the cow. Henry backed away nervously. "I don't want to hurt her." At the next station, Henry's guard told them about the cow and warned the signalman that the line was blocked. "That must be Bluebell," said the porter. "Her calf is here, ready to go to market. Percy will take it along." At the bridge, Bluebell was very pleased to see her calf again, and the porter led them away. "Not a word. Keep it dark," whispered Gordon and Henry to each other. They felt rather silly, but the story soon spread. "Well, well, well," chuckled Edward. "Two big engines afraid of a cow?" "Afraid? Rubbish," said Gordon. "We didn't want the poor thing to hurt herself by running up against us. We stopped so as not to excite her. You see what I mean, my dear Edward?" "Yes, Gordon," said Edward. Gordon felt somehow that Edward saw only too well. Percy was left alone. He didn't mind that a bit. He liked watching trains and being cheeky to the other engines. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he would call, and they got very cross. After a great deal of shunting, Percy was waiting for the signalman to set the point so that he could get back to the yard. He was eager to work, but was being rather careless and not paying attention. Edward had warned Percy, "Be careful on the main line. Whistle to the signalman you are there." But Percy didn't remember to whistle, so the busy signalman forgot him. Percy waited and waited. The points were still against him, so he couldn't move. Then he looked along the main line. Peep, peep! He whistled in horror, for rushing straight towards him was Gordon with the express. "Oh!" groaned Gordon. "Get out of my way!" Percy opened his eyes. Gordon had stopped with Percy's buffers a few inches from his own. But Percy had begun to move. "I won't stay here. I'll run away," he puffed. He went straight through Edward's station and was so frightened that he ran right up Gordon's hill without stopping. After that, he was tired, but he couldn't stop. He had no driver to shut off steam and apply the brakes. "I want to stop, he puffed. The man in the signal box saw Percy was in trouble, so kindly set the points. Percy puffed wearily onto a nice empty siding, ending in a big bank of earth. He was too tired now to care where he went. "I want to stop. I have stopped," he puffed thankfully. "Never mind, Percy," said the workmen as they dug him out. "You shall have a drink and some coal, and then you'll feel better." Presently, Gordon arrived. "Well done, Percy. You started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident." "I'm sorry I was cheeky," said Percy. "You were clever to stop." One day after pulling the big express, Gordon had arrived back at the sidings very tired. He was just going to sleep when Thomas came up in his cheeky way. "Wake up, lazy bones, do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me." And off he ran, laughing. Instead of going to sleep again, Gordon thought how he could get back at Thomas. One morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. His driver and fireman couldn't make him start. His fire went out and there was not enough steam. It was nearly time for the express. People were waiting, but the coaches weren't ready. At last, Thomas started. Oh dear, he yawned. He fussed into the station where Gordon was waiting. "Hurry up, you," said Gordon. "Hurry yourself," replied Thomas. Gordon began making his plan. "Yes," said Gordon, "I will." And almost before the coaches had stopped moving, Gordon reversed quickly and was coupled to the train. "Get in quickly, please," he whistled. Thomas usually pushed behind the big trains to help them start, but he was always uncoupled first. This time, Gordon started so quickly they forgot to uncouple Thomas. Gordon's chance had come. Come on, puffed Gordon to the coaches. The train went faster and faster, too fast for Thomas. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. "Peep, peep, stop, stop!" "Hurry, hurry, hurry," laughed Gordon. You can't get away, laughed the coaches. Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. He was out of breath and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on. "I shall never be the same again," he thought sadly. "My wheels will be quite worn out." At last they stopped at a station. Thomas was uncoupled, and he felt very silly and exhausted. Next, he went on to a turntable, thinking of everyone laughing at him. And then he ran onto a siding out of the way. "Well, little Thomas," chuckled Gordon, "now you know what hard work means." Henry was ready at 5 o'clock. There was snow and frost. Men hustled and shouted, loading the vans with crates of fish. The last door banged, the guard showed his green lamp. The flying kipper was ready to go. Come on, don't be silly, puffed Henry to the vans. The vans shuddered and groaned. Trock, trick, all right. That is better, puffed Henry. Clouds of smoke and steam poured from his funnel into the cold air, and the fire's light shone brightly. Hurry, panted Henry. They were going well. The light grew better. Signal light shone green as they passed. Then a yellow signal appeared ahead. His driver prepared to stop, but the home signal was down. All clear, Henry. Away we go. They couldn't know the points from the main line to a siding were frozen, and the home signal should have been set at danger, but snow had forced it down. A goods train was waiting in the siding to let the flying kipper pass, and the driver and fireman were drinking cocoa in the brake van. "The kipper is due," said the guard. "Who cares?" said the fireman. "This is good cocoa." The driver got up. "Come on, fireman, back to our engine." They got out just in time. Henry's driver and fireman had jumped clear before the crash, but Henry lay dazed and surprised. The fat controller came to see him. "The signal was down, sir," said Henry. "Cheer up, Henry, it wasn't your fault. Ice and snow caused the accident. I'm sending you to Crewe, a fine place for sick engines. They'll give you a new shape and a larger firebox. You'll feel a different engine and won't need special coal anymore. Won't that be nice?" "Yes, sir," said Henry doubtfully. "Wake up, Gordon," said his driver. "A special train's coming and we're to pull it." "Is it coaches or trucks?" "Trucks," said his driver. "Trucks," said Gordon. "Puh!" Gordon's fire was slow to start, so Edward had to push Gordon to the turntable to get him facing the right way. I won't go, grumbled Gordon. Don't be silly, puffed Edward. At last Gordon was on the turntable. The movement had shaken his fire. It was now burning nicely and making steam. Gordon was cross and didn't care what he did. He waited till the table was halfway round. I'll show them, he hissed. He moved slowly forward to jam the table, but he couldn't stop himself and slithered into a ditch. Ooh, she hissed. Get me out! Get me out! Not a hope, said his driver and fireman. You're stuck, you silly great engine. Don't you understand that? They telephoned the fat controller. So Gordon didn't want to take the special train and ran into a ditch. What's that you say? The special's waiting? Tell Edward to take it, please. And Gordon? Oh, leave him where he is. We haven't time to bother with him now. On the other side of the ditch, some little boys were chattering. Coo, doesn't he look silly? They'll never get him out. They began to sing. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch, fell in a ditch. Silly old Gordon fell in a ditch, all on a Monday morning. Gordon lay in the ditch all day. Oh dear, he thought, I shall never get out. But that evening they lifted Gordon and made a road of sleepers under his wheels to keep him from the mud. Strong ropes were fastened to his back end, and James and Henry, pulling hard, managed to bring him to safety. Late that night, Gordon crawled home, a sadder and wiser engine. Early one morning, a large policeman was sitting close to the line. Thomas liked policemen. He had been a great friend of the constable who had just retired. Peep, peep, he whistled, "Good morning." Thomas expected that the new constable would be friendly too, but was sorry to see that he didn't look friendly at all. He was red in the face and very cross. "Disgraceful," he spluttered. "I didn't sleep a wink last night. It was so quiet, and now engines come whistling suddenly behind me." "I'm sorry, sir," said Thomas. "I only said good morning." A policeman pointed to Thomas. "Where's your cowcatcher?" he asked. "But I don't catch cows, sir." "Don't be funny," snapped the policeman. He looked at Thomas's wheels. No side plates either, and he wrote in his notebook, "Engines going on public roads must have their wheels covered and a cowcatcher in front to protect people and animals from being dragged under the wheels if they stray onto the line. You haven't, so you are dangerous." "Rubbish," said Thomas's driver. "We've been along here hundreds of times and never had an accident." "That makes it worse," the policeman answered. He wrote "regular lawbreaker" in his book. Thomas puffed sadly away. The fat controller was having breakfast. He was eating toast and marmalade. The butler came in. "Excuse me, sir, you are wanted on the telephone." "Bother that telephone," said the fat controller. "I'm sorry, my dear," he said to his wife. "Thomas is in trouble with the police, and I must go at once." At the station, Thomas's driver told the fat controller what had happened. Dangerous to the public, indeed. We'll see about that. The fat controller spoke to the policeman. But however much he argued with him, it was no good. "The law is the law," he said, "and we can't change it." The fat controller felt exhausted. "I'm sorry, driver," he said. "It's no use arguing with policemen. We will have to make those cowcatcher things for Thomas, I suppose." A long stretch of line lay ahead. In the distance was a bridge. It seemed to Gordon that there was something on the bridge. His driver thought so too. "Whoa, Gordon," he said, and shut off steam. "Oh," said Gordon, "it's only a cow." "Shoo! Shoo!" He moved slowly onto the bridge, but the cow wouldn't shoo. She had lost her calf and felt lonely. "Moo," she said sadly. Everyone tried to send her away, but she wouldn't go. Henry arrived. "What's this? A cow? I'll soon settle her. Be off, be off." "Moo," said the cow. Henry backed away nervously. "I don't want to hurt her." At the next station, Henry's guard told them about the cow and warned the signalman that the line was blocked. "That must be Bluebell," said the porter. "Her calf is here, ready to go to market. Percy will take it along." At the bridge, Bluebell was very pleased to see her calf again, and the porter led them away. "Not a word. Keep it dark," whispered Gordon and Henry to each other. They felt rather silly, but the story soon spread. "Well, well, well," chuckled Edward. "Two big engines afraid of a cow?" "Afraid? Rubbish," said Gordon. "We didn't want the poor thing to hurt herself by running up against us. We stopped so as not to excite her. You see what I mean, my dear Edward?" "Yes, Gordon," said Edward. Gordon felt somehow that Edward saw only too well. the new engine arrived. "What's your name?" asked the Fat Controller. "Montague, sir, but I'm usually called Duck. They say I waddle. I don't really, sir, but I like Duck better than Montague." "Good. Duck it shall be." "Here, Percy, show Duck round." The two engines went off together. Soon they were very busy. James, Gordon, and Henry watched Duck quietly doing his work. "He seems a simple sort of engine. We'll have some fun and order him about."
Whee!
Smoke billowed everywhere. Percy was cross. Duck took no notice. "They'll get tired of it soon." "Do they tell you to do things, Percy?" "Yes, they do," answered Percy. "Right," said Duck. "We'll soon stop that nonsense." He whispered something. "We'll do it later." The Fat Controller was looking forward to hot buttered toast for tea at home. Suddenly he heard an extraordinary noise. Whee! "Bother," he said, and hurried to the yard. Duck and Percy calmly sat on the points outside the shed, refusing to let the engines in. Gordon, James, and Henry were furious. "Stop that noise!" bellowed the Fat Controller. "They won't let us in," hissed Gordon. "Duck, explain this behavior." "Beg pardon, sir, but I'm a Great Western engine. We do our work without fuss. But begging your pardon, sir, Percy and I would be glad if you would inform these engines that we only take orders from you." "Silence!" snapped the Fat Controller. "Percy and Duck, I am pleased with your work today, but not with your behavior tonight. You have caused a disturbance." Gordon, Henry, and James sniggered. "As for you," thundered the Fat Controller, "you've been worse. You made the disturbance. Duck is quite right. This is my railway, and I give the orders." After Percy went away, Duck was left to manage alone. He did so, easily. Today, there was a surprise waiting for Edward in the yard. It was a traction engine. "Hello," said Edward. "You're not broken and rusty. What are you doing here?" "I'm Trevor. They're going to break me up next week." "What a shame," said Edward. "My driver says I only need some paint, polish, and oil to be as good as new. But my master says I'm old-fashioned." Edward snorted. "People say I'm old-fashioned, but I don't care. The Fat Controller says I'm a useful engine." "What work did you do?" "My master would send us from farm to farm. We threshed corn, hauled logs, and did lots of other work. The children loved to see us." Trevor shut his eyes, remembering. "Oh, yes, I like children." Edward set off for the station. "Broken up, what a shame. Broken up, what a shame. I must help Trevor, I must." He thought of all his friends who liked engines, but strangely none of them would have room for a traction engine at home. It's a shame, he hissed. Then, beep, beep! Why didn't I think of him before? There, on the platform, was the very person. "Hello, Edward. You look upset. What's the matter, Charlie?" he asked the driver. "There's a traction engine in the scrapyard, Vicar. He'll be broken up next week. Jem Cole says he never drove a better engine." "Do save him, sir. He saws wood and gives children rides." "We'll see," replied the vicar. Jem Cole came on Saturday. "The Reverend's coming to see you, Trevor. Maybe he'll buy you." "Do you think he will?" asked Trevor hopefully. "He will when I've lit your fire and cleaned you up." The vicar and his 2 boys arrived that evening. Trevor hadn't felt so happy for months. He chuffered about the yard. "Show your paces, Trevor," said the vicar. Later, he came out of the office smiling. "I've got him cheap, Jem, cheap." "Do you hear that, Trevor?" cried Jem. "The Reverend saved you and you live at the vicarage now." "Peep, peep," whistled Trevor. Now Trevor's home is in the vicarage orchard, and he sees Edward every day.